Welcome back. We are up close and personal with Mark Kuntz today, a theater professor at Western Washington University and local director. And today we are talking with Mark about what is your next project?
Yeah, I am working on a new musical called Marina. It was written by Sandy Wolf, who's a Blaine resident, and the music is being composed by Justin Melland, who's an ex-Bellingham resident, who's now making it as a composer in the commercial field. He's doing a piece right now for Oprah, and he's had a couple films that are that he's composed that have been very popular at Sundance. So he's somebody who's got his foot on the pedal of his career, and I feel real lucky to be able to work with him and Sandy on this brand new musical. Sandy brought me the script a number of years ago, and I've been looking at it over time and waiting for the right moment. This is not unlike my experience with Border Songs, another show that I learned about early and was waiting for the right time. In this case, the right time just seemed to come up right now, and Sandy is ready to give it a go. It recently got a reading in New York, and then it got a reading in Seattle. So it's a piece that's starting to get some momentum. And part of Bellingham Theater Works is to do original works by local artists if we can. Right. And this play, this musical, happens to take place in Blaine, in a fish cannery in 1908.
Oh.
And it's a love story, and but it's also about race, and it's about the complexities of a very diverse group of people who all kind of find their way to Blaine, making money in the cannery business and fishing and cannery, and out of it comes. Part of the complexity of this is what happens when fishermen go out to sea to catch their fish, and how many of them come back and don't, which is a fear and also a danger that lives underneath this play. And then it's a love story. It's really a beautiful, beautiful musical. I'm very excited to take it on. And I really like working with original pieces when we're in the trenches with the playwright, as these words and songs are being breathed for the first time, and kind of shape them along. It's going to happen in May, and I don't have the exact dates in my head, so I should be shot as a director. But it's the third week of May at the Mount Baker Theater. Runs one weekend.
Okay.
Yep.
I will have to bring my aunt. My entire childhood, she worked in the canneries in Anacortes.
Oh my gosh.
So having even that tie to the idea of it. How is directing a musical different than a non-musical play?
Well, there's a whole bunch of more people involved, and that may be the big part of it. Immediately there's a choreographer who needs time to work with the dancers. We have the music director who's honoring, in this case, Justin's desires in terms of the music. We have the conductor who's hiring a bunch of players, who's trying to get them to learn a whole bunch of music, which again is original music. And then there's the scope of the show, and this is a big musical. So there's a lot of scenery to build. So there's a whole complexity of it. There's a lot more moving parts than just a regular play, and so a lot more resources needed to build it and to put it together. But I like, one of the things I like about directing / producing, and I think it's probably smart to say I'm also a producer in this case. Is all those moving parts and seeing them all come together. So it's a much more complex event, especially since it's a new piece.
You still seem very, very passionate and involved. What keeps you that excited about theater?
I think there's a number of things. There are lots of stories to tell, and I don't think stories ever go away. And when I go to the theater and I have a cathartic experience, and those get harder and harder to find, I think, in my old age. But when I go to the theater and have a cathartic experience, and I feel like when I walk out of the theater, I'm a different person, and I look at the world differently. My lens has changed. I think, boy, now that's living life right there. Right. That's really living life, and that inspires me to see if I can create that experience for other people. And that drives my energy. That drives my desire to do it. That drives my and to watch students and actors and colleagues and and to watch light bulbs go on and watch us, to get together in the trenches, storytelling, kind of waking up our brains and living life in a way that's very vital and real. That to me is why I'm doing it. I think it's why it's so interesting to me. There's another thing about it that, and I don't know, maybe it's part of our today's culture, is you work really, really hard for a short period of time, and then you have a something.
Right.
You have a something right there. You get to look at it, you get to feel it, you get to touch it, you get to experience it, then you set it aside. And then you get to start on a whole new one. And that's really rewarding to me. And theater is different in that way, is that something is not something you can actually grab onto. It's in the air. It's a space between audience and actor. It's a communication between them in space, in time, that once that evening is done, it's gone. It's there.
Right.
It's there, right there. We live it together. It's now only in our memory. And then we move on to the next project. And you can't, I don't care if you video it, you rewind it, or whatever. No.
So you love that transitory nature.
Oh boy,
the ephemeral.
Oh yeah, that moment when you're in it with other people and you're engaged and they're engaged with you and we're having an experience. And I talk to actors about you're getting ready to have a moment that you'll never forget, that will be with you the rest of your life. And we don't, how many of those do you have a day?
Right.
Not many. How many do you have a week? A month, So we're in the business of making those moments, making a real connected kind of moments that remind us to reevaluate who we are as people, to awaken our ideas about what's possible, about how we live with our community, our responsibility as people when we're engaging with even our neighbors or our friends or our work, all of those things that theater's interested in chewing up, and so we can reevaluate who we are. And that's, to me, is what it really inspires me about theater. And I'm so in love with that idea that it gets me up in the morning and to my 8 o'clock class pretty easy.
It's funny that you should mention that, because as you were saying that, I was reflecting and realizing that to this day, I have never forgotten the first laugh I got from an entire large audience.
Oh, wow.
I think I was in 7th grade. And to this day,
Yeah.
I remember that feeling, and then something in me going awake and going, oh, this is a wonderful feeling.
Right. And it doesn't take long for that to start to happen, change you chemically. You start getting goosebumps. You'll start getting, start to sweat, and you start getting, say, whoa,
Ooh,
that's
like
a
this.
real, man,
Yeah.
that's a real something. That's amazing. And I think that, there's this old saying we have in the theater that you've experienced, which is got bit by the bug. They got bit by the bug in the theater, which is that moment that I think that getting up in front of people in a pressure-packed environment, when there's this kind of communion between people listening and people who are that is really infectious, and it's an amazing bug. And when you get bit and when you feel it, it's infectious, and you want to go get some more of that. And I think that's another reason why that. And I live it through the actors now. I used to be. I was on the stage, and I live it through them, and it's still just as magical, I think, as a director to watch it happen.
And if you could be good or super talented at anything in the world that you're not currently very skilled at, what would that be?
I'd play the drums. Well, I got a chance I was in a group, and when I was in the Portland area, called Broadway and Jazz. And believe it or not, I was the male singer, and there was 2 female singers, and then we had 5-piece group, and we did the convention circuit. And I was a singer and performer in that. And there was one number where all of the band came out and sang, and the 3 of us went back and played, and I got to play the drums. It was awesome. And the good drummer taught me some kind of silly rhythm.
Right.
And I was in heaven. I was playing the drums. And I think, my next life, I'm going to play the drums and the piano.
Rock and roll, jazz?
I love jazz, but if I went to jazz, I'd be the piano player. My kids are awesome piano players, and I'm living through them, listening to them play the piano.
Right.
So maybe the piano is the other one.
Have you ever had to work, what do you do when you're faced with a drama diva actor? By surprise.
It's interesting that every now and then I choose drama divas by choice. I talk to my students about this. I like to be surrounded with actors who want nothing else than to be the best thing on the stage.
Right.
because I feel a great deal of comfort knowing that the result is going to be good because I got a whole bunch of people who aren't about to be bad.
Right.
They want to be really, really good. And we share that in common. And once we discover that we have that in common and that we're both working together
Right.
towards that, the diva part goes away because they know I'm there with them to be really good. And I also like to talk about it with the students in terms of I want a cast full of people who want to take the last shot at the buzzer, you know.
Right.
That's that kind of, you know, give me the ball and let me run. And so at times, if and when I get to with a personality that it becomes more difficult, it usually doesn't take very long for that relationship to become very simpatico and we work together really well. Because we have a common goal. We have too many things
Right.
that are in common for us not to be working together to make it work. So,
Excellent.
yeah.
As we close, is there anything else that you would like to say to people who don't come to theater? Why should they come to a live production?
You know, that's a really good question. And every day I feel like I meet people who've never been to the theater. And I think that I would like someone to come to the theater, number one, the moment that they have a reason to go. Mm-hmm. Not go because I drug them, although I've done my dragging. I'm here to say I've drugged people. But an example, Border Songs, there was a number of people who came to that play and it was the first play they'd ever seen.
Right.
And because it was about Linden, and it was about their neighbors, and it was about, so now all of a sudden I'm interested in seeing what that's about, and walk into the theater and go, oh, look at, you know, I know people who walked into the theater at Linden, and that theater's been there a while. Linden's not a big town. And a bunch of them said, well, this is the first time they'd ever been in the room at all. Didn't even know it was there.
Wow.
And that's exactly what I said. Wow. You know, and didn't know it was there, and walk in and sit down and have the first time. And boy, is that rewarding as a director when you're having people having their first moment of experienced theater. And of course, in this case, it was a book kind of approach, which is a very different, and they were wondering if that's how it's always done,
Right.
which is fine, which is just great. But it seems to me that when the audience member wants to come, there's a curiosity to get in the room. That's when we really want those first people to come in. So I think it's important for me as a director to be doing work that gets them curious, and says, you know, I'm going to go to the theater. Mm-hmm. I'm going to go see what this is about. This sounds interesting. Or I heard from somebody else that this is really and that's a very Bellingham thing, is that we hear from somebody else that it was good, and then we go. And so you know, generating work of high quality, so that people get excited about it and then they tell their neighbors. And so people have a reason to go, even if it's just because they heard somebody say, there's something remarkable going on down the street, you want to go see it.
Well, and I know from my own perspective as both a performer and an audience goer, I can tell everyone out there that if you want to see your first performance be a very, very high quality one, then all you have to do is go see one that has Mark Kuntz's name
Thank you very much. That's
associated with it.
Thank you.
I'm Ramona Abbott, and I would like to thank you, Mark, for joining us today. This has been absolutely delightful.
It's been fun. It's been great fun. Thank you.
We've been getting up close and personal with Mark Kuntz, and we will see you next time.